Monthly wrap-up thumbnails are gonna be the death of my biceps. Hey guys, it's Lyric. Welcome back to another video. My first monthly wrap-up of 2024. I haven't filmed one of these in a while. I don't think I did one for December or November last year. I actually read a lot of books, but I never even filmed wrap-ups for them, and I'm so sad about that. But I think maybe in the future, I'll film a video and talk about some of those books that I didn't talk about. Possibly, because I read some good books at the end of last year and just straight up never talked about them. Weird. Kind of a crime. I'm so excited. Y'all know how wrap-ups go. You know how it goes. I'm gonna share my thoughts, feelings, ratings. If you ever watch a wrap-up video of mine and you're like, I want to see a little bit more about her experience reading that book, there is probably a reading vlog where I'm reading that book, because a majority of the books I read are in reading vlogs and they have more details on my thoughts and opinions, and you get to see more of my reactions, and most of my reading vlogs are spoiler free. This month I read a total of 6 books, which is okay for me, not the greatest amount wise, but I have had a really good time reading this month. I'm not gonna lie. I've really thoroughly enjoyed every book that I read. I'm excited to talk about them with you guys. First book that I read in 2024 was The Finisher, and I actually started this in 2023 but got close to halfway, so I'm counting it for 2024. I read another book in between, and then I also read The Annihilator. Both of these books are in the Dark Verse series, which I think I've mentioned a few times on my channel. This is kind of my first official dark romance series that I read. I started it last year. My best friend and I have been reading them together, and I cannot. This series is definitely one I will continue to think about for quite a while. It was so good. These are the last 2 books in the Dark Verse series. There's still one more book that was supposed to come out in 2022, but the author had some things going on in her life and stuff, and so it was postponed, but there's still one final book for this whole series, and I need it to come out because it will tie everything together perfectly, and there are still like some questions and things up in the air that I need the answers to. But the first 3 books in this series are so good. So good. The Predator, the Reaper, and the Emperor. But these are mafia romance books, and what I absolutely love about this series is that if there was no romance in these books, the plot is good enough that I would probably still read it without the romance. I don't want to spoil anything, but each book is about a different couple. They're all intertwined. It's such a great series, but it's like a mafia romance where the men, they definitely have their moments, but they all do respect women and they protect women, and I have just loved this series so much. I ended up rating The Finisher 3.25 stars and The Annihilator 3.5 stars, which are both the lowest ratings in the whole series. They were still really good, but the couples and the story and the plot in the first 3 books is amazing. I actually think out of those first 3 books, 2 of them were 5 stars for me. In these 2, I didn't connect or care as much about the couples, but I did really enjoy the plot, and since we're still getting characters from the other books are also in these, it helps me enjoy them even more. All in all, the Dark Verse series for me is a 5-star series. I have loved my experience reading this series, and I need Runix to release the last book because I need it all to come together. I have posted about 10 TikToks about this book. I have not stopped thinking about it, and that is Powerless by Lauren Roberts. This has been compared to The Hunger Games. So a lot of people who have read The Hunger Games, I feel like read this book and they're like, this is very, very similar. I have not read The Hunger Games, so I was going into this not knowing what that was like or having any ideas of what's to come in this book. But this is about the Kingdom of Ilya. Payton is an ordinary, and in this world, the Kingdom of Ilya a long time ago got rid of all the ordinaries because they believed that the ordinaries were making the elites sick. So they banned all ordinaries, and so the kingdom is now just full of elites. Payton, however, is an ordinary, but her father taught her how to act like a psychic, so she pretends that that's her power and that she is an elite. So she ends up accidentally saving the future king of Ilya. Later on, there are these trials every certain amount of time, and it's where a chosen number of elites will compete against each other, and Payton gets chosen to compete in those trials. Remember now, she's competing against elites, right? This girl is ordinary. She goes to the castle or whatever, and then she sees Kai. My bad, I said Kai was the future king. He's not. He's the future enforcer, which means he's going to rule like people that battle battle or fight and all of that. He's not the future king. But Peyton meets Kai and he's also in the trials, and she's like, oh, I saved the future enforcer. Okay. Guys, listen to me. Listen to me. The tension between Kai and Peyton, so good. The quotes and the amount of times I underlined stuff in this book. I kept a note on my Notion of all of the quotes and dialect and stuff that I ended up loving, and the page is so long. I could write like a few chapters of a book just full of quotes. I've mentioned this before, but I really feel like I have to stress it. Every time Kai is speaking, I almost want to underline or annotate it. The things this man says, it's like he was born to flirt. It's like he was born to create this tension, and he is so good at it. Lauren Roberts did amazing with writing Kai, but I absolutely love the tension between Kai and Peyton. It's so good. And the ending of this book, I was expecting it to be a good ending, but not in the way that it ended. That's just not what I was expecting, and now I need Reckless to come out yesterday, actually. But yeah, I've been talking about this for way too long. Please read it. Please read it. Of all the books I'm talking about today, if you read any of them, please read Powerless, guys. I absolutely ate it up, and I ended up rating this book 5 stars. It was so good. One of the easiest 5 stars that I think I've ever rated. I'm just gonna choose one quote, and I'm gonna read it to you guys because I have so many quotes I'd like to read from this book. I'm gonna try to control myself though and only choose one. Literally look at all those quotes. Told you it's a lot. Okay, actually we'll do 2 quotes. The first one is kind of in the middle of stuff, but just listen. So I said her name again and again. I finally let myself do it. Let the last piece of attachment to her lock into place. Just saying her name felt intimate, personal somehow. And now I forever want her name on my lips and rolling off my tongue until I'm drunk on the taste and sound of it. And then this last quote is so iconic, but it's so simple. If I am to be her enemy, I want it to be because she loathes herself for wanting me. And the fact that he's literally words on paper. I don't know how I feel about that. Moving on, the next book I read was Divine Rival. Whoa, we match. Literally twinning. Look at us. Yeah, so next book I read was Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. Also, Divine Rivals and Powerless are both in a reading vlog together. It is the TikTok Chooses My Reads. You should definitely go watch that one. Both of these books, I really liked them. This is about Iris and Roman. It's set in like a newspaper. I don't know what timeline this is, but I loved it. Iris is a writer. She works in a newspaper, and so does Roman. Iris's brother goes out to war. There's a war taking place throughout this book, and so Iris wants to write to him, and she has this typewriter. She learns that it has like some magic to it because this is a little bit of a fantasy world. So she's typing these letters to her brother Forrest, and she kind of puts them in her wardrobe, and after she's typed out the letter on her typewriter, they disappear. And so she's like, yeah, Forrest is getting my letters. Then he never writes her back, and she realizes they're not even going to Forrest. They're going to someone else. Turns out the person she's sending the letters to is Roman. Now, Roman and Iris work together at the same newspaper. They're literally competing against each other for the same position. And Iris does not like Roman. She gets annoyed with him. There's this tension. They're always back and forth at each other. Roman ends up learning very quickly that the letters he's receiving are from Iris, and he knows this all along. Iris, on the other hand, she doesn't know. The letters and the words, since they are both writers, the letters are literally works of art. They're so beautiful. So yeah, we go throughout this book. There's the war going on. That's a big aspect in it. I tried to describe this in my reading vlog, but I've never read a book that had me feeling a way this one did. I can't put my finger on what that feeling was, and I think it had to do with the setting and the time and the war going on. Just everything about it. It made me feel cozy, but at the same time, this is not a simple cozy vibe book. But the romance between Roman and Iris was beautiful. I loved it, and the quotes and the writing in this book is really pretty. But I ended up rating Divine Rivals 4.25 stars, and now I really want to read Ruthless Vows, which is the second book in this duology. Look at how cute this is. It's a little typewriter, and it says Dear Iris. Literally so cute. I love when books are pretty underneath the dust jacket. Next book I read was The Bodyguard by Catherine Center. This was my first Catherine Center read, and I've heard a lot about this book. I've heard a lot of great things about this book, so I was really excited to read like a fun romance book after reading dark romance and fantasy books. So this is just like your simple rom-com book, and I needed that. This is about Hannah Brooks and Jack Stapleton. Basically, Hannah is a bodyguard, and she gets hired to protect Jack Stapleton, who's like a famous actor. He's going back to his family because his mom has been sick and he wants to spend time with her and the family, but he needs a bodyguard because he has a stalker. Hannah ends up getting hired to protect Jack while he is with his family, but here's the twist. Jack doesn't want his family to know that he has a stalker, and so how is he gonna have Hannah with him, walking around being with the family all the time because she's looking out for him and doing her job, without them knowing he has a stalker? Perfect solution. You're gonna be my fake girlfriend. So Hannah's like, okay, this is fun. Hannah and Jack, obviously, it's fake dating. They have to act like they're together around the family. This was such a fun read for me, and I can see why I've heard so many great things about it. I just love the dynamic, love the writing. It was just such an easy and smooth read. I loved like the atmosphere too. It was set on what he went through. I just loved him. I really did. But yeah, I really enjoyed this romance, and I'm also gonna read a quote from this book because especially at the end, like, there were a few quotes and I was like, that's really good. So I'm gonna read one of them off to you guys. And also, one thing I do on TikTok and on Instagram now that I'm trying to do more often with books, I'm gonna start posting some of my favorite quotes, just because something I'm trying to do in 2024 is track quotes more often from books that I really enjoy, because it helps me remember the story better and remember what happened in the book. And book quotes are one of my favorite things in the world, I think. Okay, this one's kind of long, but I just really love this quote. And in the end, do you ever truly know for sure if you're lovable? What a question. You don't. You can't. And of course not. Life never hands out the answers like that. Maybe love isn't a judgment you render, but a chance you take. Maybe it's something you choose to do over and over for yourself and everyone else. Because love isn't like fame. It's not something other people bestow on you. It's not something that comes from outside. Love is something you do. Love is something you generate. And loving other people really does turn out in the end to be a genuine way of loving yourself. That's... Tell me if you saw that quote, you wouldn't be like, wow. See, that's just so good. I'm editing this video right now, and I just realized I literally just forgot to rate this book, which makes no sense because that's the point of this whole entire video, but I ended up rating The Bodyguard 4 stars. There you go. Okay guys, we have come to the last book of this video, which I haven't even finished yet. We're about to switch to the clip that is me reviewing this book after I finished it, but I'm just gonna go ahead and show you what it is. Last book I read in January. Haunting Adeline by H.D. Carlton. Cue the next clip. Sorry for the weird lighting, it's only gonna be for one clip. Last night, I finished Haunting Adeline, so it's time to talk about it, guys. Going into this book, I had definitely heard some things. I feel like if you're part of Book Talk, you've definitely seen this book, heard about it at least once or twice. It was quite a big book on Book Talk, especially back in the day. This is a dark romance book, y'all. Very dark romance. So if you end up reading this book, make sure you check the trigger warnings because you're gonna want to do that. So this is about Adeline. She is an author. She's moving into her grandma's house. It's always been kind of dark and haunted, but Adeline's like, it's fine. I want to move in. I want to be independent. She moves into this house, and pretty soon after, she starts realizing that she in fact does have a stalker. You're like, oh, that's kind of cute. She has this. No, see, because this stalker is Zade Meadows, and Zade Meadows is insane. This man is full stalker. He will literally get into her house, into her room, and every time Zade gets into Adeline's house or gets in her space, leaves a little rose because he is romantic. Zayd is just another level of stalker to the point where it's insane. But this book, not only do we have this whole thing going on with Adeline, there is a whole nother plot. Actually, there's two plots kind of. Adeline ends up finding out that her grandma or her great-grandma, I kind of got it mixed up sometimes, also had a stalker. And Adeline starts reading the diary entries that her grandma would write about this stalker, because we do end up learning pretty early on in the book that I think it was Adeline's great-grandmother was killed. And so Adeline's trying to figure this whole thing out. And then there's this whole other thing with Zayd. He hates human trafficking so much, and that is like what he's trying to end. And there's this big ritual thing that takes place with these kids where it was super dark. I'm not going to explain it on here, but Zayd tries to kill the people that are in charge of that, which is like a green flag of his, but trust me, there's still a lot of red flags. So there's two different kind of plots going on in this book, as well as the romance between Adeline and Zayd. A lot of people either love or hate this book. I read it with my best friend. It was peak comedy to me. This is possibly one of the funniest books I've read. Maybe you're like, Lyric, that's a problem. That is not a funny book. Hear me out. You have to hear me out. If you read the book and think of Zayd as the most delusional man ever, this man is so delusional and unhinged when he says stuff and when he does some things. It is so funny. I literally caught myself cackling, like actually laughing out loud. For example, there's this one part, and it's the beginning of a chapter, and Zayd is describing Adeline because he's stalking her, of course, and he's talking about the way she looks and going into detail and everything as Adeline's about to go to bed. And then after this whole description is over, he goes, "I'm in her closet." I thought mans was outside with binoculars. No. He was in her closet. I really like this book. I really enjoyed it. It's definitely a lot. There's a lot going on. The way it ended, guys, I felt so incomplete. I have so many questions, and like now I need to read Hunting Adeline. There's so many things I need to know. It ended on such a cliffhanger. I'm a little upset about the ending because I thought it would be a little more conclusive. It's not. So now I need to read the second book. But with all that being said, I am giving this book 4 stars. It was genuinely enjoyable for me. There's so many funny moments, definitely engaging. I also read it with my best friend, and we both agree that it's funny. Like, we both think it's funny. Even if you hate the book, you have to admit there are funny moments in it. That's just how I feel about it. Like I mentioned, just check the trigger warnings, y'all, because there are so many. 4 stars for Haunting Adeline, and now I actually want to read the second one. I was not expecting to like this book the way I did, or to think that it was funny, but here we are. Okay, back to me in the past. So those are all the books that I read in January. I had a great time reading this month, and I can't wait to have another great reading month in February. But feel free to comment down below a read you weren't expecting to enjoy as much as you did. Comment stuff about your reading month because I want to know. And it helps other people in our fun little corner of the internet get more book recommendations. Leave your book thoughts for the month in the comments. Let's chat about it. Feel free to follow me on Instagram and TikTok. I post book content every single day. I am trying on TikTok to post 3 book videos a day for a few months, and I want to see how that goes because I really want to grow my little book community. You guys are getting a bunch of content over there, so feel free to follow that if you want more book content from me. That is all for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Love you guys so much, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!